Good evening. A big thank you to you from the very, very start for watching us, for listening to us, whether it's live or on catch-up. And we're being noticed. Our influence is being noticed. I had Alison Pearson on the show last night talking about Plod, knocking on her door last Sunday morning for something she said on X a year ago. And Elon Musk picked this all up and he posted last night and saying that, what we'd done is the show had beaten Sky and the BBC ratings combined. And he's making the point, Elon, that basically people have had enough of old-style mainstream media. So a big thank you to Elon Musk as well. Now, some figures out today from the OECD suggest that the United Kingdom saw a 53% surge in migration in 2023, the highest among wealthy nations. Now, America's number was bigger at 1.2 million. But our numbers are pretty much off the charts. And pro rata, our numbers are the biggest in the world. 746,900 people came for permanent type settlement in the United Kingdom last year. Well, I'm joined in the studio by Mike Jones, Executive Director of Migration Watch. I guess these figures are no surprise to you at all.
No, not at all. They're shocking, but not surprising. And the numbers don't lie, and the numbers are devastating. I mean, according to the OECD, we saw the largest percentage increase last year among permanent migrants amongst the rich countries, about 53%. The only country that came close to this was South Korea, with Australia in a distant third. And as you said, in terms of raw numbers, we were second only to the United States.
Which is 6 times bigger than we are.
Precisely. I mean, if you zoom out, you go back to 2019 to 2023, there was about a 110% increase. Only a very small number of countries outdid us there. I think it was Poland, Lithuania and New Zealand. So the figures are absolutely staggering.
They are. I don't know what you think at home, folks, but, is this ever going to end? Farage at GBNews.com. Give me your views. Is this ever going to end? Now, Mike, the point is that, and for years, for 20 plus years, I've talked about this, worried that the population increase would just have an impact on services, etc. But I was told by real experts like Nick Robinson of the Today programme that what mattered was it was good for the economy, that mass migration was good for the economy, and so we just have to put up with the M6 being a bit busier on a Friday night. But there's evidence now coming through that actually it's not particularly good, is it?
No, I mean, when people promote the economic benefits of immigration, they confuse elite immigration and mass immigration and GDP and GDP per capita. So if you increase the size of your population, obviously the economic pie is getting bigger, but GDP per person doesn't necessarily increase. In fact, mass migration can actually damage the economy. The last major study that was done on this by Oxford Economics, they found that it was a huge burden to the taxpayer in the financial year of 2016. But that was pre-Brexit, and non-European migrants were the biggest burden, according to that study. But since Brexit and the points-based system was introduced, we've seen a huge surge in legal and illegal migrants from outside of the EU. So clearly, the idea that it greases the wheels of the economy is a fallacy.
Also worth noting that the OECD do make the point that a very large number of those that came were dependents of those who had work visas, and that means providing education, health, whatever else it may be. Now, the numbers are going to be down this year, is that right?
Oh, I think so. Anywhere between 100 to 150,000 in terms of net migration. That's the sort of ballpark figure. Obviously, that's a result of Tory party reforms. James Cleverly banned most postgraduate dependents and social care dependents. He tweaked about with the salary thresholds. But at the end of the day, neither the Tory or Labour parties believe in a cap on visas. In fact, the Tory party got rid of Theresa May's cap on non-European migrants. And ultimately, without a cap, there's no control. And that's the only realistic way of bringing numbers down.
Well, I think that's very interesting because we do have with us in the studio Tom Pursglove, former Conservative Member of Parliament and Minister in the Immigration Department. I'm also joined by Susie Stride, former Labour Party advisor and activist. So, Tom Pursglove, I mean, these figures are from the last year of your government. They're awful.
Well, I thought the numbers were too high, and that's why we got on and did something about it. And James cleverly as Home Secretary, and me as the legal migration minister, in more recent times, took steps to address this. And as has been touched on, the numbers will be down very considerably this year. There was quite senior commentary around the fact that actually, even without those measures, you would see the numbers drop organically. But we thought it was the right thing to do to really bring those numbers down, pulling the levers that you and I campaigned for in that referendum.
No, I know.
We said we wanted to decide what our fate should be when it comes to immigration. That's precisely why we introduced the points-based system, responding to the mandate from the referendum.
Yeah, but you set the bar too low. You set the bar too low. I mean, far from cutting immigration numbers, they went to record levels.
Well, before my time as the legal migration...
I'm not saying it's all your fault, you know.
We were very
I mean, some of it is, obviously. But
as I say, I was not happy with the position that we're in. But equally, you do have to recognise, I think, in the post-pandemic world, that there was a need for social care workers, that we have had to respond to various conflicts. I think I struggle to find people who would disagree with us responding to the Afghanistan crisis, the Ukrainian crisis, Hong Kong BNO situation, as well as Syria, any differently. That accounts for a large part for those numbers. But this does need to be in a much more sustainable place, and the government should see through that package that we announced.
What was interesting was Kemi Badenoch, of course, was campaigning openly for students to bring dependents with them. That was her campaign. She was proud of it. That's one of the loopholes that has been closed.
I don't think those numbers were ever what was envisaged when that policy was announced.
Wasn't it obvious?
Well, let's look at, for example, on the social care side, we banned dependents from being able to come with social care workers. And when you looked at the numbers, for 100,000 social care workers, you had 120,000 dependents. They were the figures that I was presented with in December last year when I took on the role as the Home Office Legal Migration Minister. That was just an unacceptable situation, which was why the change was right.
Which is why we're getting poorer. I mean, this explains why, Susie, you know, as I said, this long-term argument that it's good for us economically. Well, GDP may go up because there are more of us, so there's a bigger cake. But actually, our measure of wealth, our GDP per capita, has fallen for 6 of the last 8 quarters, coinciding with record numbers. And I just wonder, you know, Mike made the point that Labour, you know, and the Conservatives are really not setting numbers or levels for visas. Do you think Keir Starmer's government takes immigration seriously?
I think they do, because I think, look, I mean, you can't be someone that understands politics and, you know, goes out and canvasses and think that immigration is not one of the biggest issues in this country. It just is. And whatever you may think about it, and I'm very big on this, and, you know, we're not talking about the American election tonight, but ultimately the Democrats didn't listen to the people.
Oh, I think that's right.
And they lost.
Yeah.
And ultimately they didn't listen to working class people, and they lost. And I keep saying this, and I think, you know, hopefully the Labour Party will get this, you know, you've got to listen to working people. You've got to listen to actually what are their concerns. And we know that actually there's a whole lot of people that have concerns about immigration, and it's nothing to, it's not a race vow. It's, you know, it's a concern about a whole lot of things. And so I think they do take it seriously, but I think it's not straightforward. And my question would be, you know, actually what are the answers here? Because it's been a big issue, which actually neither the Conservatives, and we've only just been in for a few months, but like, I don't think the answers are easy. I don't think it's like rocket science. Does that make sense? I think it's great we've arrested this like top smuggling guy, but obviously, and Keir Starmer has said it himself, that is not going to be the full answer. That's a small thing.
So I wonder where we're going with this. Let's see Kemi Badenoch in the House of Commons a couple of years ago.
As a first-generation immigrant, can I welcome the Home Secretary's statement, which I feel this immigration white paper is a move from the 20th century to a much better future immigration system. In particular, I'd like to thank the Home Secretary for removing the annual limits on work visas and also on international students, both of which I lobbied for on behalf of the Wellcome Sanger Institute and Anglia Ruskin University, which serve my constituency. Could he elaborate on how removing the work visa cap in particular will give business certainty?
Now, they may have changed that policy now, but doesn't it tell us, Mike, that actually there's no real difference between the Conservatives and Labour on legal immigration?
You know, it's like watching 2 bald men fighting over a comb. As you say, there are very few differences between them. They don't believe in capping any visa whatsoever. They don't have a net migration target. They both suck up to vested interests. You know, the rot set in when Sajid Javid was in the cabinet and he had that notorious white paper. The whole consultation process was a complete farce. They consulted mostly pro-immigration interest groups and lobbyists. So there's very little difference between them. I mean, the Labour Party talks a bit more about upskilling and reskilling the workforce. The Conservatives are quite stern on dependence. But really, you've got to cap immigration. You need a target, and you need to withdraw the loopholes from the immigration system.
That's why we wanted an annual cap.
Is Mike right?
That was our policy.
The
election, we said we would have an annual cap, and we would set an annual
Tom.
cap based on the needs of the economy and our policies, and that's got to be the responsible approach to
You've just jogged my memory. 2010, net migration tens of thousands a year. 2015, net migration tens of thousands a year. 2017, net migration tens of thousands a year. Why would anyone believe anything the Conservative Party now says?
Well, I think in the post-Brexit world that, again, I make the point, you and I pressed for this, we worked hard to deliver that result, gives us the freedom to be able to decide our destiny on this. That's why having an annual
and your
cap.
party chose mass migration.
Well, we've pulled the levers to bring the numbers down, and I think we would have continued on that trajectory. When I announced, and we were doing the work around the...
There's a big difference.
We said we would go further. We would look to go further, and that's right.
All the big numbers that came from Ukraine and elsewhere can explain partially why the 2022 figures are as big as they are. I get that. But the 2023 figures are not explained by that. This number is 750,000.
Those OECD numbers are interesting in the sense that it talks about, in the articles around it, that the largest composite part of the numbers is those health and care visa dependents. James Cleverly and I banned social care workers from being able to bring
so
those
the numbers were...
And so that should organically...
So we'll be down to just... So this year, just 500,000?
But look, we should be going further. This was a package that brings the numbers down by 300,000.
We kept voting for you on tens of thousands. This issue, Susie, did the Conservative Party enormous harm. They seem to have broken their promises in 4 consecutive general elections. Tom may not like to hear that, but it is true. That's how people feel. But the same is going to happen to you guys, to your guys. I mean, it's pretty clear to me, from what I can see of this Parliament so far, that Labour don't think this, that Westminster Labour don't think this really matters.
I don't think that's true because, I think Keir Starmer is actually, more, what's the word? I mean, look, first of all, the way he got rid of Jeremy Corbyn, I think actually he knows how to win, he knows how to listen, he knows how to make stuff happen. Okay, how quickly he changed our party around. He may not be talking about this all the time, but I think he knows you're not going to win. We're not going to win in 4 years' time if we don't begin to properly get a hold of this. And also, I think it is the right thing to do. We're not talking about illegal, but people coming over the channel and drowning, is not a good thing.
The numbers are going up.
But with this, it's very interesting, as you keep saying, the health workers, the social care workers. This is because we do have gaps, in our workforce, and we've got to upskill people so we don't have those gaps. But also at the same time, I agree with you. I don't think we should have, it should be as freely able to come to this country because you're a dependent, etc. So,
no. Well, one thing for certain, this debate is far from over. It will go on. Mike, thank you for coming in.